So Merv, share with us some of the influences that led to your career in engineering. Was it family? Was it friends? Was it the things that you enjoyed doing?
Well, my dad was an engineer, civil engineer and a mechanical engineer. He was actually both in those days. And I guess that was the biggest influence. I saw him as someone who seemed to be able to solve any problem. And I guess that's what I aspired to. I can't ever remember a time when I hadn't decided that I would be an engineer.
So was it construction and infrastructure that fueled your enjoyment of solving problems?
I also, from a fairly young age, felt that I would go into business, and I didn't really know what business that would be. I had an uncle that was in a business. He was a stonemason, strangely enough, and I liked the life that he seemed to lead, which actually bore no resemblance to the life that I actually have led. But I just liked the sense that you could take engineering and then that control over your own destiny and superimpose the two into some sort of business. I didn't really understand consulting. My dad came from the public service background, so I didn't understand that side of things. So I didn't really know what sort of business. But that evolved as I, once I decided to be an engineer and started work. Then I looked at where the future was, and I started my career in Newcastle Council, and I could see in that time the transformation occurring away from in-house design and documentation and even construction into outsourcing. So I saw that was where the future was. So I looked at what avenues I would look to be the outsourced person, and consulting seemed to be the one that fitted my skill sets best.
So how long were you at the Newcastle Council?
6 years. Though I was an undergraduate with them, I went through university as a cadet at Newcastle Council.
And what was the plan that you formed for your career during your time at Newcastle?
Right, well, I went from Newcastle Council to a company called CMPS. They were the second biggest consultancy in Australia at that time. That was my learning ground, and I really went there with the intention of learning that industry. I left Newcastle Council. I decided by that point where my future was going to be. I can't actually understand people who don't have a strategic plan for their life. It may seem a strange thing because I've actually discovered not many people do, but I actually had a strategic plan, and my plan was find a job with the best consultancy in town, and there was only two to choose from back in those days, and I got the job with CMPS. So I set about deciding when I thought I had the skills to start my own business. I decided that at 4 years, which was absolutely ridiculous. I did not have the skills, but luckily fate interceded at that point, and I was offered a role in the Tehran office of CMPS. So it rescued me from making a bad decision, and I went over there to work for 2 years, which actually turned into 1 year because of the revolution that happened at the same time. But that really rescued me in a whole lot of ways. I discovered a lot about myself in that year, and myself and my wife. We discovered the resilience that we didn't know we had, perhaps. Realised what I didn't know, and we came back and worked for another year at CMPS, and then that's when I made the decision to go. So I'd been there 6 years. I was 30 years old at that time.
So the Tehran office experience must have been very important to your growth. Tell me about the things you might have learned there that you wouldn't have learned here in Australia, and consequently how important is overseas experience in shaping a career such as yours?
Yeah, I don't think you can never set out to get an experience like we got in Tehran, but that was just without a shadow of a doubt, a life-changing experience for us. Our second child was born there, and a revolution took place. So you just learn so much about managing unexpected circumstances, almost on a daily basis over there during that period, and you grow up so fast. We came back different people. There's no doubt about it. I'm not sure, I suppose every overseas experience does that for someone, but to be in a situation like that, it's just so much more rewarding in personal growth.
What was the business model that you used to form your own business? And was it taken from your previous experiences?
The council experience and the CMPS experience were very, very, very different. And what I set out to do was actually meld the best of the both together. The council experience was a really good place to work in, that it was a very egalitarian place. Everyone enjoyed the work, enjoyed working there, but not the work. It was a very social place. It was just a nice place to work if you were prepared not to be frustrated with the quality of the work. CMPS, on the other hand, really good experience, great engineering, the opportunity to do jobs that anywhere you could do anything you chose to do with CMPS, but a terrible work environment. A place that had silos all over the place, and they didn't seem to mind that the silos existed. They didn't. I didn't know the word silo back then, but I know now that's what they were. They were silos. There were silos between the engineers and the draftsmen, between regional offices and head office, and between head office and other region, across between regional, everywhere, all silos. And I wanted to create the work environment that existed at the council with the quality of work that existed in a place like CMPS. So I wanted to grow a place where work didn't compete with life, it was part of life, but you also wanted to come to work almost as much as you wanted to go home. So that it was a complete package of life, and I think that for the most part we have achieved that. Obviously you got to keep working at it, but that's the objectives that I started with really did follow through. So I wanted that culture of inclusiveness, everybody getting on with each other, which never happens all the time, but it certainly happened a lot in this place. I wanted a place that people saw as a career opportunity. I didn't want turnover of staff, and we didn't have turnover of staff. The first 10 years we were in business, we hardly had any, I don't think we had anyone leave, maybe one or two, but very few people left. So I wanted people to want to be there, and I wanted the same thing for the clients. I wanted most businesses continually focus. You go into their business, and it's reasonable to have this on the wall. It's reasonable to say, we value our clients, we want to do what our clients want and all the rest of it. But I wanted to sit behind this and say to our staff, you know what, we're the most important, not our clients. But if you want to get what you want out of it, then you've got to give the client what they want too. You've got to be the best you can for your client. And so that pervading thing is that, yes, we're here to make this a really good workplace and enjoy life, but you can't do that unless you're also the best. So it's just a slightly rejigging of the same outcome. And you don't necessarily, well, you can tell the clients that. I don't think it was ever a secret from our clients, to be honest, but they stayed with us as well. We had a fantastic, and still have fantastic, retention of clients. So we wanted that the clients to be part of this total team, and that was the mantra for it, I guess.
So starting your own business, how important is family support from your wife or your wider family in pursuing such an interest?
You've got to agree on the vision for your whole of life, the strategic plan, I guess. Your strategy has got to be built with the rest of your family in mind, and they've got to own it as much as you have. You can't have a strategy to build the biggest and best business in the world and finish up with your wife gone 6 months later because she's not part of it. It's got to be that shared vision. And if she wants a career, as my wife did, then that's part of it as well. It's got to fit in.
What were the early days of the business like, Merv? Was it all beer and skittles, or were there times when you maybe had second thoughts? Had you made the right decision?
Never had second thoughts, naively. Probably should have. But no, look, I guess, I don't think there's ever a time when I didn't enjoy work. My goal was two things. I wanted to enjoy work and have a stress-free life. And being stress-free requires a decision to make it a stress-free work environment, to make it an enjoyable environment for people around you. Because you can't be the only person enjoying it. If they're not enjoying it, then how can you enjoy it? So I wanted, again, this workplace to be an enjoyable workplace, and with a shared vision for what we wanted to achieve. And I think we had that shared vision. The fact that we got into this habit of having the Friday afternoon drinks, and that was really got to be careful of using the words here. It's probably an indoctrination session, actually. In reality, it was where we all talked about that shared vision and tried to make sure that everybody was on board with where we wanted to be and where we wanted to go. And it was a lot of fun in the early years. It's always been a lot of fun, but it was particularly it was fun then because we were never quite certain where we were going to get to. So there's a little bit of the excitement of the adventure. We wanted to grow. We didn't know how fast we could grow, and because I was quite young at the time, I was learning on the run, and they were learning with us. The staff was learning with us and enjoying the journey, I guess. I think they all enjoyed the journey.
So what were some of the important projects in the early days of your business that set you on the path to the success that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, funny thing, we focused on winning clients rather than projects. So the big successes were the clients. We were very early in the piece. We got a pretty good stream of work from BHP, and they were an important client. So they were an underpinning client, and they just kept coming back to us. And then we picked up ICI, which became Orica, and we were their primary supplier of structural work when they moved their division, that part of their explosives division to Curry. So, and there's a lot of other clients along the way. One of our first clients was a company called Quarry Products, and just a relatively small quarrying company. That same company we still do work for 40 years later. So that we've grown the relationship as they've grown. So we focused on winning clients and being their primary supplier and teaming with them in whatever they wanted to achieve. But as far as actual projects, I guess a watershed project was the Newcastle Harbour foreshore. A big job for our company at that stage. We'd been around for 6 years, still fairly small, but because I'd worked at Newcastle Council, they knew me. They gave us that job, and that was the next 3 years. We did that project over a 3-year period, and it was a really important transition where people knew we were there. We were no longer, because until that we'd been primarily an industrial focused company. Unless you were in the industrial space, you would not have known we existed, but that was a high profile job, and following that I guess we were reasonably well known in this area.
How did Lindsay Dinan come to be? How did Kevin Dinan come into the business, and what challenges did you face, if any, in this new creation?
I worked with Kevin at CMPS, and I had always mentally seen him as a potential partner, but he went to UK and then went to Brisbane, and I thought that was no longer likely to happen. But he came back here in the Newcastle earthquake to work at Rankin and Hill, and to support them during the work they were doing after the Newcastle earthquake. And we got back together and started chatting about the possibility, and I realised that we still had that synergy. Kevin and I are quite different in many ways, and I think that's what I always looked for. I didn't want a clone of myself. I wanted people that would fill in my skill gaps, and he very much is exactly that. So it wasn't hard. It was actually never difficult, never difficult. It was difficult for the staff initially, because initially you've got a staff that's all just worked for me, and suddenly they've got someone else in there. So there was a few minor teething problems, but nothing of any significance. So it was a perfect partnership. Well, I think both, amazingly, I don't think we've ever had a serious disagreement. We've disagreed, but we've never had a disagreement.
So from that, I understand that synergy and the complementary skills of the two partners were the important factors in making this work for you.
Yeah, complementary skills. I mean, in any partnership, you can't ever compare. That's a fundamental starting point. You can't, if you start comparing, you've got to hose this down any time it happens, even in the business on a day-to-day basis. You hear people saying, oh, I'm the best designer and how come that guy gets more money than me? Well, it's about the skills that the company's looking for at the time. As soon as you start comparing what one person offers in any particular area, you're going to make yourself unhappy. And that's the starting point in any workplace. Don't start comparing, because you won't. It's a road to nowhere. So, you know, Kevin offers completely different skills in many ways, but you know, he's so much better than me in a whole lot of areas, and I'd like to think that I'm better at him in a few other areas.
The business was more than the two partners. You had other staff that worked in the business and helped manage the business. How did you source these staff members? Where did they come from? What did you look for?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because my family always said you can't get a job at Lindsay Diner unless you can play tennis, and and it's not entirely true, but there is an element of truth in it. Because I think in the early days, I used to think that people who could play tennis had some of those inherent values that we were looking for, the cultural values that we were looking for, in that they knew that you had to be individually really good, but you can never win a game unless you work with your partner. So you know that sense of you know. So that's what we look for. We look for people that we only recruited very smart people. We set out to recruit very smart people. We worked very hard at finding the smartest and best. So straight out of school, we'd for apprentice draftsmen, we would sift through literally 100 applications, trying to identify people that could deliver the talent that we needed. All of our young draftsmen back in those days that are now no longer so young are all really good at their jobs, and many of them are still there. And then likewise with engineers, we looked for the top graduates, and then we'd sift through the top graduates and try to find the ones that were culturally aligned. So you know, we're very, very fussy, because a business like ours, you know that you've only got one product to sell, and that's ours. It comes wrapped in different shapes and forms. It might come as a drawing or a report or something like that, but it's fundamentally an hour, and that's the product. So if you're trying to compete with other people who are also selling hours, you've got to have the best hours, and you can only have the best hours if you have the best people producing those hours, and that was it. So that's the underpinning essentiality of a consulting practice: be the best per hour. And so that's the starting point. So that's how we recruited, and then you've got to build everything else around it. I suppose where I got that idea, Bruce Sinclair, who was one of the founders of Sinclair Knight, which later became Sinclair Knight Mertz, and now it's been taken over by Jacobs. When he went into business, he told my dad that he was going to build the business around employing the best people and focus on only employing people that were smarter than him. And that stuck with me. I was only very young at the time, but those words just stuck with me, and I thought, yeah, that's what you've got to do. You've got to find people smarter than you. And so that informed, I guess, that's where I got the idea, that you had to have smart people.
How did you find these staff members? Did you source them from another competitor, or did you have a different plan of attack, how to get the right people into your business?
If you want to create a company with a different culture and a different vision to anything else, which is what we were trying to do, there were similar. There were other businesses that I sort of stole my perception of how they were. I don't know whether it was reality or not, but basically I was trying to build something from the ground up. I didn't particularly want to bring people in that came with their own perceptions to some extent. We recruited straight out of school for draftsmen, straight out of university for engineers. We focused on training, building their skill sets up at the rate that we could grow the company. The growth of the company was dictated by the rate that we could create the workforce. Until we got to a critical mass where we felt that the culture was safe in the hands of that critical mass, we didn't really bring people in from outside. When you do build a strong culture, you've got to be, we have not been mindful enough of the difficulty of bringing someone else in and not appreciating the values that they can bring. We've probably been, you tend to be a little bit overprotective of, that expression, but we always do it this way, and it must be the worst set of words that someone coming from another organisation can ever hear. And I'd say we've probably been guilty of that a bit.
What innovative practices or approaches has Lindsay Dynan introduced to consulting engineering?
We had the ability, and still have the ability, to compete with people much bigger than ourselves. And we have always focused on competing with the big national consultancies. So we can deliver a product that they can deliver with a much sharper, more finely tuned organisation behind us. So you're competing in a much safer, more profitable space. So it's, we've never sought to be a small consultant. We've always sought to be a mid-sized consultancy, but competing up here.
What is the one big lesson that you've learned over your career?
It's got to be fun, and fun for everyone. It's got to be fun for the whole team, and then it will be fun for you. If you think it can be fun for you without being fun for them, well, it can't be. You can't enjoy it. I did work for a boss. My first boss, my boss at CMPS, was a really highly talented engineer. But he was very old school. I'm the boss, and then it cascades down from there. And I don't actually think he ever enjoyed work. I just think he enjoyed being the boss, but it was like a duty. And he actually retired in his late 50s. And you wouldn't have done that if you actually enjoyed your job. He had a great office, similar size to what we were probably 15 years ago, and the potential to really enjoy it and do great things. But he didn't create. We had a massive staff turnover in that business. That was the other thing. When I was there for 6 years, and at the end of the 6 years, I looked around when I was getting the farewell, shake hands, and all the rest of it, and there's only 3 or 4 people that had been there when I started. And that was, I thought, gee whiz, I hope that never happens to me. And so I was focused then on staff retention as well. It's a sobering thing to realise that after 6 years, only you and you were there. So not a great work environment. I wanted that great work environment.
Is there a key message that you would like to leave with the staff at Lindsay Dynan as you step aside? Something they can hold on to as they continue the success of the firm?
We hear a lot about work-life balance. People use this word, do you have work-life balance? And I actually don't like that expression as such. I like the word life balance, and I didn't make that expression up. I heard it a couple of years ago. They say it's about life balance. And that's what I'd say to someone: make sure that you have life balance, because work is part of life. We spend about half our waking hours at work. So if you're going to enjoy life, you've got to enjoy work, but you've also got to enjoy life, and the two have got to be not mutually exclusive. So I suppose what I'd say to people is, think of work as being a part of the total life, but if you're going to enjoy life, and work, then you've got to be good at it. You've got to, for something to be satisfying, people have to be satisfied with what you deliver. And when you receive that positive feedback, if you want to receive positive feedback and have people feel that you're doing a good job, then you actually have to do a good job. Set out to be the best. In a place like Lindsay Dinan, contextualise it. Work out how you can be the best to make them the best. If Lindsay Dinan are the best, then and you're the best that you can be, the whole thing will be very, very rewarding, and you'll go home. I mean, if you go home at the end of the day feeling good about your work, and then the rest of your life will be good too. You know, you'll be kind to your wife, you'll be kind to your kids, even kind to your dog. It's that whole package of making sure you enjoy life. And if you find you're not enjoying it at times, figure it out. Talk to people. You know, don't carry the burden of not liking it and pack up and go somewhere else. Be prepared to discuss why you don't like it. Talk to the people you're working with, the CEO or whatever, about the whole thing. Because the objective in a place like Lindsay Dinan is always going to be to make work a positive experience and an enjoyable experience. So they'll work with you to make that happen. And look around the office, the huge retention rate that we have in the company and the long-term employees, that's what we have done right in the past. But make sure that we continue to do it right by challenging the company to continue to deliver that life balance that you need to enjoy your work. And when you're enjoying your work, when any new employer is enjoying their work, the people around them will enjoy it, and the company will continue to prosper.
Merv, thank you for joining us today to talk about the outstanding career that you've had and the highly successful business you've built at Lindsay Dinan.
You know, life's not a dress rehearsal. You've got to love it. You've got to love your work. So you've got to figure out how to provide the ingredients to love your work, and then give those around you the same ingredients. Because if you love your work, then you're halfway towards making that work successful. So I think that you've got to you can never succeed without a strategy. A guy just came back to work for us about 5 weeks ago. And he'd been away for 2 years. He only worked with us for about 18 months before he went overseas. And someone was telling me on Saturday night that one of our competitors wanted him to come and work for them. And he turned that job down, even though they were offering him $15,000 more. And they said that he came to us because he liked the culture. And saw the opportunity to build a career in our company that he didn't see in the other one. The other one he thought he would be delivering a set of designs. For us, he's delivering a career. Well, even with my retirement, I guess I've planned that too. I mean, I'm so busy, probably overdid it.
You've built a wonderful business based on some sound principles, and we continue to wish you every success in whatever you do next. Thank you.